mountains of Long Island.
Oh,
The
Vancouver.
mountains of Long Island. They're so beautiful. They're like Narnia.
Oh, my goodness gracious. What's good? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of The Newest Olympian. My name is Mike Schubert. I'm the titular Newest Olympian. I'm a grown man who never read the Percy Jackson books as a kid. I read them as an adult. I was on a quest to determine if this was a book series that society has been sleeping on. I determined it, and the answer is yes. And now there's a TV show that hopefully will solve all of those issues, and we're going to talk about episode 2 of that TV show with a very special guest, someone who you have heard on the pod in the past, and now you'll get to hear them talk about the TV show that was the inspiration for them starting their own podcast. It's Erica Ito from Seaweed Brain. Erica, how's it going?
Oh my God, you really set me up so well. This literally was the inspiration for starting Seaweed Brain 3.5 years ago.
Incredible.
And it is unbelievable to be here right now. I am like mad busy trying to generate content, but overall just very grateful that this is even happening and can't believe I'm here.
Yeah, the release date getting moved up obviously is very good in terms of we get the content earlier. But in terms of workflow and hecticness and holidays and my Texas tour and the other things, the other wonderful opportunities that have been coming along, like it's all fun, but it's also a lot.
There's a lot going on, but the chance to watch these episodes in real time, like in my childhood home, with all my friends, like in person, who we read these books together and we talked about them growing up. I do understand the appeal of releasing it around the holidays because all these older people were going to be like back at home. It makes sense.
Yeah. Now let's get into episode 2. Now I'm excited to have you on to discuss episode 2 because in our last episode we had Sequoia, who is fantastic, but like me, didn't read the books until adulthood. For you, you've been a super duper fan of the whole series and the series beyond and everything else. So I'm excited to have your perspective as longtime superfan for these first 2 episodes that we're putting out back to back.
Oh, yeah. And not to mention the central question of our podcast, Seaweed Brain, is Persassiness the greatest love story ever told? And this is the episode where Percy and Annabeth, their TV versions, meet for the first time and they start to establish their relationship dynamic, which is obviously what I'm most excited about the entire TV journey, is seeing how they update and change and add to this relationship with these very real, wonderful actors who are very little and tiny. They're so tiny.
They're very tiny. They're very tiny.
They're so
but
squishy.
They're very good. They're very talented. Yes. Now, before we get into it, though, since this is your second time on the podcast, I get to ask you a repeat guest question, which is, what would your nectar and ambrosia taste like? So,
yes.
Ideal drink and ideal food.
Oh my gosh, yes. We just wrapped up talking about the Chalice of the Gods, and we were asking our Chalice of the Gods questions. Oh my God. This isn't a spoiler, to be clear.
Say nothing about it.
We were asking them about their favorite drinks because cups are a theme. So
sure,
this is
in the title.
Yeah, very similar. That's not a spoiler. I would have to say at this moment in time, it's going to be a matcha latte with pistachio milk, a little bit of honey, and cinnamon.
That's really good.
I do
That's
work
really good.
as a barista, so
there
that
you
is
go.
my current nectar right now.
It shows. And do you have an ambrosia, a food taste?
Oh gosh. Okay. I don't eat dairy. So a mac and cheese made with nutritional yeast.
Let's go.
Trust me. Nutritional yeast is my everything. Highly recommend.
Yeah, I purchased it once because during lockdown quarantine cooking adventures, Kelly was making something that involved nutritional yeast. And it was my first time knowing it existed. I was like, you mean the bread stuff? And they were like, no, different yeast.
The
The nutritional yeast. It's kind of like cheese. And I was like, okay, where do I find it? And they were like, it's in a spice section. It's a spice. I was like, all right. And then I brought it home.
You went grocery shopping so she could cook?
I did,
God, I have seen what you have given to others.
Look, we have the division of labor in the marriage, and I am usually the grocery shopper. I am like a hawk at a grocery store. I'm a very frugal boy in general, but like I'm out there, I'm trying to get the right stuff. If something is like a per unit thing.
Yeah.
Like it's not a per pound. I'm getting the biggest one possible. Like I'm there trying to get all the perfect things. I'm looking for the deals. I'm getting the family packs of things if possible to bring down that price per pound.
I would love to go to a Costco with you.
Ooh.
That would be an adventure.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We'll go to the Astoria Costco.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, let's talk about this episode of Percy Jackson.
Yes!
This is clearly a Percy Jackson podcast. So where we last left our heroes, we had Percy post-Minotaur fight kind of coming to, and Annabeth had said some ominous things about him being the one, and Chiron said, welcome to camp, we've been expecting you. And when that ended, I was thinking, all right, are we going to get you drool when you sleep? I really want to get you drool when you sleep. And thankfully, the first thing you hear in episode 2 of the Percy Jackson TV show is... You drool when you sleep. I'm so happy that you drool when you sleep found its way in here. Oh, I would have been crushed.
I would have rioted. I mean,
I would have been really mad.
This is the first thing. Obviously, he hears the whisperings, like you said, like, is he the one? Like all that stuff when he's in bed. But this is the first canonical piece of dialogue that Percy and Annabeth share. So it's important to me personally.
Mm-hmm. It's very
And I loved
important.
the touch that you can see her like through the mosquito netting around the bed. It instantly made me feel like, okay, we're at camp.
Yeah.
We have mosquito netting.
It's good. So then Percy finally properly wakes up and Grover is by his bed. And we see that Grover intentionally captured the horn and brought it for him and gives the reasoning that it's a rare feat and it's really cool. And I love that. I love them establishing Grover is being Percy Jackson's #1 hype man. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. I also feel like in The Lightning Thief, something that really stuck out to me when I was a little kid was that he would pick up the Minotaur horn or he would carry it in his backpack. It was one of his only possessions because obviously he didn't carry anything with him. And every time he would hold it, he would think about his mom. Yeah. And then that was like the physical reminder that his mom is somewhere after having sacrificed her life for him. And this episode really sets up that level of stakes. So it was really cool to see that detail here from the book.
Yeah, it's really nice. And I also appreciate Grover. He's just doing a very good job, and the actor's doing an incredible job. Arian is knocking it out of the park. He is so talented. I
become a Grover, from a Grover anti to a Grover stan after seeing his performance. I am amazed.
I didn't know you were a Grover anti. I love Grover so much.
Let me come out as a former Grover anti. I just didn't think he was very funny as a kid, and I was like, what is he doing here? But now I get it. Yeah. I really get it.
Mm-hmm. He's so... Him and Walker are just incredibly talented. Like they are acting their butts off. Like they're doing such a good job. But he has this one line, and I just like that this is becoming more of a theme, especially with Grover, of Percy talking about his feelings. Grover says, I know it isn't easy, but I want to talk about it. And that's being really established that Grover is a proponent of let's talk things out. And I think it's good to establish that because I think it's something that finds its way in the book without like ever being explicitly a thing. Like they always do talk about their feelings. And it's something that I think narrator Percy sometimes explains, like he always wants to express himself. So to have Grover really lay that groundwork of, hey, we talk things out in this friendship. I love it. I love it.
Yes, I really feel like Grover, I mean, he was always the protector, right? That was his role. But I feel like in the TV show, we're establishing him not only as the like protector, but also almost like the social worker in Percy's life. Like I'm the person who's going to come in and like therapize you and be there. Like, let's talk about it. Tell me about your feelings. Like, talk to me about your mom. I'm here to protect your heart as well as your physical body.
Yeah. I think it's really good. And even in episode 1, we saw Grover when Percy said he wanted to stuff Nancy in a dumpster. He was like, you could talk to so-and-so at the school. Like,
don't stand up to bullies.
That's the guidance counselor. Yeah, such a funny line. So Percy puts on his clothes, gets us out, and then he goes to the area where Mr. D is. And Manzukis is so good.
That's my king.
He's so good. Like, we all knew he was going to be perfect, but he's so good.
Can we also talk about the stained glass porch?
Literally, I have a note. Stained glass is fun. I like it. I like it a lot. I don't know who decided this. I guess it would be Dan. It would be Dan Henna, the production designer.
I mean, he would have had to sign off on it at least.
Sure, but it's a fantastic choice. I like stained glass on a patio. It's one of those like I never thought of this, but I need this in my future sunroom.
It's beautiful. The colors are so ethereal. They're like springy. It sets up this like weird, almost like liminal space. It also like, what does stained glass make you think of? Church. So you're thinking about like this like secular like place full of the gods and like this place of worship. It's very interesting.
It's fantastic. And to completely change the vibes, Mr. D, who appears to be sitting with his legs kicked up and sleeping when Percy says hello and introduces himself. He just screams, "Peter Johnson is here!" And it's really good. It's really good.
That was a good Jason Mantzoukas voice.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
It made me think, like, if someone did one of those things where it's like, I cut up the Percy Jackson trailer, but I made it comedic instead. Or like having some sort of intro thing where it's like, Peter Johnson is here. And then it's like, this summer. Or I guess this winter solstice, you know, like it's such a funny line.
Something that stood out to me in episode 1 was Gabe's characterization, being that he was very quirky, very silly, goofy, funny. Like, he was still mean and rude, but he wasn't as like violent and sleazy as he came off in the books. And I would say the same thing for Dionysus, that he seems very quirky, silly, goofy, and not like cruel to unbelievable levels, you know? I don't know if that's just like from how I interpreted them reading them as a kid, but I feel like it's an interesting switch because it establishes, like, we're trying to figure out who's the villain, right? Like, who's the antagonist here? And if you have all these adults who are being really cruel and mean, then it just feels like everyone is against him. But if you hire all these amazing comedic actors to play these like silly, goofy roles, then we start to shake down and see like, okay, who actually is the villain of this season? Like, what is the big bad that we're up against?
Right. I think what's interesting is in this episode, they don't really get into why Mr. D is running the camp. They mention the curse of the wine thing, but they don't say that he's in charge of the camp as a punishment. So I think because that isn't established, you don't have Mr. D taking his anger out on Percy and the other campers. So you don't have him just being rude or mean or cruel. You just have him being a bit angry with either Grover or Percy or whoever, just because they're trying to stick to a process. So it feels more like justified stuff. It's more of like he's being tough, but not going out of his way just to be mean. So I think it does work. And I think that the tale of this episode, it basically being, we would assume, the only episode where they're really at camp. Like, they're going to be at camp a little bit in episode 3, but they got to just get right out on the quest. And this is something that actually came up when I was talking to the executive producers at Comic-Con. Dan Schatz mentioned that for hundreds of pages in the book, they are at camp, but the action doesn't really get going until they get on to the quest. And if you're making a TV show, like, they got to get on the quest. You can't have 2 episodes of Percy just going to training and talking with Chiron and all of that. And I think another factor of that is you can't get like the intricacies of the Mr. D relationship. So you just kind of have to understand he's a bit wacky. He's a bit of a goofball. And then he has set in his ways how things should go, and he doesn't want to hear it from Grover or Percy or whoever.
And this is the camp episode. It is so efficiently done. I am so blown away by how efficient and sleek this script is. Like you said, we get everything established. We establish the characters that we need to establish here at camp before we get going. We know how the system works. We get, it's so quick.
Yeah, it's good. They know what they are doing.
Storyboarding.
Yeah, it's really, really impressive. Now, when Grover rushes up because he doesn't want Percy to do anything too rash to a literal god, Grover introduces Percy to Mr. D, and Mr. D says, "I heard him the first time," and then Percy goes, "But did you?" Which is really good.
That was
really,
the first
really good
moment of Persassiness that we've gotten.
Yes. And we get some more of that in this episode, and I'm very happy about it. Walker nails the Persassy. It's very, very good. What Mr. D then at this point does, the whole fake dad thing, I thought was really funny and a nice choice, and actually a really efficient way to get into the curse thing and not have to explain, because we lose a lot of the Chiron explaining what's happening to Percy. So to kind of get that same information in different ways, it's a nice 2-for-1 of like, we get that Mr. D is kind of a outlandish character, and also Chiron gets to say, you know, the gods can't take each other's things. You have to get the demigods to do it, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's a good 2-for-1 there. I think it was really nice and a funny way to do it on top of that.
Literally, everything is so efficient and hilarious, and the timing is great.
Yeah. And one of the really funny things is Mr. T goes, "Peter?" And he goes, "It's Percy." And he goes, "Exactly."
That might be a direct line from the books, for real.
It might be. It might be. So then Chiron, aka Mr. Brunner, comes up. Percy, and now everyone's doing this. Why are we calling him Mr. Brunner? Why, like, what
I'm so glad you said that. I gaslit myself into thinking, you know, because I pronounce everything wrong. If you're a Seaweed Brain listener, I apologize. You know that. I don't know how things are said. I grew up in the middle of the ocean, and that's my excuse. But I was like, Mr. Brunner. It's always been Mr. Brunner. Mr. Brunner?
2 N's.
Oh, 2 N's.
BRUNNER. That's Brunner. I hate to break it to you, Rick Riordan and / or whoever else is making this change. That's Mr. Brunner. It's Brunner. And in the bad movies, they sometimes call him Brunner and sometimes call him Brunner in the first one. Then he's just Brunner in the second.
Weird.
And then now in the TV show, he's just Brunner. How does this keep happening?
Brunner would have to be a double O.
Yes.
That's the only way you're going to get me to say Brunner.
Or maybe if you do BRUNNER, like Brunner. But like BRUNNER, it's
That's
Brunner. What's going on?
Period.
It's very strange. It's very, very strange. But anyway, we have Mr. Brunner, because I refuse to switch. We have Mr. Brunner, Chiron, taking Percy around the camp. And I was really happy about this because I didn't feel like the Mr. Brunner Percy chemistry was there in the first episode. But again, I think that's just the nature of the adaptation. You can't get the extended scenes. You can't get the Grover and Brunner conversation that Percy overhears. You can't get all of that. So I felt like it wasn't really there in the first episode, and I was a little worried. But I think that all melts away in this walkabout the camp scene, and it made me really happy because I was afraid that it was going to be the same thing as the Bad Lightning Thief movie where Percy and Chiron don't seem to get along at all, so why do we care? But I think this one establishes that Chiron is coming out of his shell a bit more. Maybe he's being more standoffish in the first one because he has to withhold the truth. Yeah. And now he can just be regular Chiron, still withholding the truth, just not as much.
I have always also been a Chiron anti.
Okay.
I have just like, what is going on with this man? He is not the leader we need him to be. Why is Annabeth running this camp? Like, that's how I've always felt about him in the books. And again, instantly, the first second that Glenn opens his mouth, I'm like, this is Chiron. Like, this is how he is meant to be. He is kind, but authoritative. And he's only keeping this secret because he genuinely believes that it would hurt Percy or hurt the situation in order to tell him. And I believe that.
Yes.
Versus in the book, I'm like, you're just being mean.
You just want the plot to develop. Ooh.
Yeah. No, this is like, I get the sense that he has trained heroes for a millennia. You can feel that in him, that commanding presence. That's good casting because not every old actor would just have that by having gray hair. You have to carry that within you, and it's so present in him.
And it's also incredible casting. Another thing that I learned at Comic-Con was that the actor who plays Chiron runs a charity with horses in the inner city, and he was a rodeo clown.
People to ride horses, which makes perfect sense. Like, he is a mentor to the youth.
He's the Centaur Mentor.
Centaur Mentor, exactly.
But he's perfect. He's absolutely perfect. And I do know that for filming some of the stuff, they have him on top of a horse for some of the scenes, which that's why it looks so natural.
Yes.
Now, after this whole tour, we get Percy going to the Hermes cabin. And maybe this is just me not understanding what's going on. And maybe I can ask this to someone in the future. What was the little logo on the banner? Was that like a lowercase h? Like, what is that?
I believe, I could have brought the receipts today to this meeting, but things have been busy. I think that in a blog post Rick made shortly after the very, very first teaser trailer drop, people were asking, what are these symbols? Because they're not Greek letters. And he said that they are not symbols from any known language.
Oh.
So I think they made them up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know, because they have the symbols on the stained glass motif.
Yeah, it was a cool, inspired, but looks a little different Caduceus, which was cool.
Yes. I also have to offer like a slightly conspiracy theory level perspective on the walk towards the cabins that we're getting.
Please.
Okay, so we're walking through this like kind of open field area when Chiron's saying like, this is a sacred valley, et cetera, et cetera. And we get to this part of this open area. You see the lakes, you see the archery field, the sword fighting, like outdoor arena. And there's a big circle in the middle. And in the middle, there's a statue.
Yes.
And the statue looks like, to me, Hercules, because there's like a lion on his hip that looks like the Nemean lion fur. And I tried to cross-reference that image, and I don't think it's an actual statue that exists, but it does look very similar to actual statues of Hercules that exist. And around this like circle, almost like spokes on a wheel, they have the different paths to the different training areas, and they have 12 banners for the 12 Olympians. And I swear to God, the banners correspond with the different paths. So there was like a trident symbol going to the little pond where they have the canoes, and there was an arrow going towards the archery field. Literally, you see that for like a second, and I was like, oh my God, the detail. Yes. And the idea that they would be training all around this statue of Hercules, who is considered to be like the perfect demigod,
Oh,
isn't that wild?
I like it. This is why we're bringing you on. The super in-depth picking up of the things, whereas I'm just watching the show and I'm like, it's so good. It's so good.
Hercules is such an important character in
Yeah.
Percy's journey that he continually references back to.
Yeah, I could see a future episode in a future season where Chiron brings Percy to the Hercules statue for one of the books that's a little more Hercules-ish, which I feel like Titan's Curse. Oh, thank you, yes. But yeah, I think if you're bringing in Percy before book 3 or one that features so many tasks and labors that Hercules had to do, I could see Chiron being like, Percy Jackson, and then, saying it right
Great
there.
Glenn voice.
I love the way he talks.
Have you considered voiceover?
Yeah, I do enough of it. This works. So after all of this, Percy goes into the Hermes cabin. Chiron does this like funny clap thing to get everyone's attention. Like he was one of those teachers that does like the thing, the clap and repeat. Sure, whatever it is. And then we have Percy meeting Luke. And Luke has, I would say, a very different vibe from what I imagined for Luke. I would say a very different vibe. Just because in the book, he's like, I think the thing is, Luke in the books is what a 14-year-old thinks is cool for someone in 2006.
That's accurate.
This Luke is very cool for what people think in 2023. Like he's got the permed hair, which is very much in style now. Like he's very cool.
I wrote down so many times in my notes, cool guy vocal fry.
Yeah,
he is nailing the cool guy vocal fry. I am literally like, that's a cool kid.
Right. Yeah, he's a cool kid.
It.
He is a 2023.
Vapes,
Oh, no, that's not cool. That's not cool.
It's not cool. It's not cool.
Not cool.
But 12-year-olds think it's cool.
But they shouldn't. There's other cool stuff you can do.
No vaping. We don't know the effects that it has on your lungs, and we won't for many years.
So don't do it.
This has been a sponsored PSA.
Gosh. Yeah, this episode not brought to you by Juul. But Luke, he's very 2023 cool. So I will take it. Different from the Luke that I'm imagining, but I understand updating for the times for a TV show that is canonically set in no time earlier than 2021 because there's a Zach Wilson jersey in the first episode and he was drafted by the Jets in 2021. So
see, this is something I never would have known.
Sports boy coming through. Sports boy coming through. I screamed at the top of my lungs when the New York Knicks were referenced in episode 1.
Oh my God, that was funny.
So good. So good.
Strong Sally, you love to see it.
Love to see it. Absolutely love it. I want to know who her favorite player is. But Luke, very, very 2023 cool. I like the scar. I like the way he's talking about stuff. I also like that when Percy talks to him about being claimed and all that kind of stuff, he does very quickly say, oh, my dad is Hermes, but that's not important. We're all on the same team here. It's like laying the ground.
Team here.
That's like a cool moment, but also he does try to push beyond talking about his dad very quickly, which tracks. So I think it's pretty good. I like the Luke. He is different from what I imagined, but I think he's perfect for this adaptation.
I think it's a great example of how well the creatives are striking the balance between letting this be something new and exciting for people who've never touched the series before and also exciting for people who are diehard fans. Because I could see all of this Luke stuff as being, you wouldn't pick up on that if you had never watched the series before. But as somebody who knows the books, you're like, oh my God, his eyes are glistening with the ghost of his past. Like you can tell.
He's talking about glory a lot.
Yes. Every time Hermes gets brought up, he gets really pissy. Like, oh my gosh.
So then you have them walking around the camp for a little bit. And then we get the Clay-reese meet cute, where she pushes Percy almost immediately to the ground.
Yes.
And then they have a bit of a back and forth. Clay-reese, again, is not how I imagined Clay-reese.
Do you mean Clay-reese?
Are you saying that because of the way that Walker pronounces it? Or okay, he does.
I thought they were all saying Clay-reese in the show.
I didn't notice anyone else saying her name. I feel like I thought Luke just said Clay-reese, but I did notice the first time that Percy is talking to Luke about her, he does say Clay-reese or Clay-reese. Like it's very weirdly said, like Clay-reese.
Oh my God.
It's big so emphasis cute on the first thing. But again, different from what I thought, but I think she's still doing a very good job. So I'm here for it. I imagined, if anyone's ever played a backyard sports game, Kimmy Eckman, I always imagine like big buff Kimmy Eckman for Clay-reese, which is like red hair, freckles, that kind of stuff. That was just my vibe. But I like this Clay-reese as well. I think she's fun.
This may be my favorite casting.
Yeah?
I think Dior, especially in this episode, we'll get there.
Yeah, we will get there. But first we got to have something that is new and different and fun. Grover talking to a tree dryad before going into the council. Very fun. This new character, Helena, according to the credits.
Helena.
Cool.
I was like, is this supposed to be his mom?
At first, I was like, "That's not Juniper. She's too old. Like, that's."
And they're not dating yet.
No, and she's not the villain until 3 more books from now.
Ha 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 ha.
How foolish I was, but here I am. But anyway, I liked it. I thought it was cool. The costume was incredible. The camouflage worked. At first, I was like, "That's a tree," and I was like, "That's a lady." So it was fun. I didn't expect Grover to consult. Like, this is definitely different than how it goes down in the book, but I kind of like, and we'll just have to see how the council develops, but I like the council seeming like a resource for Grover as opposed to this place that hates him.
Yes. Okay. And I don't know, but I'm pretty sure in The Lightning Thief, this is like an off stage scene. Like, I'm pretty sure he mentions that he goes to the council to clarify this like unsettling feeling that he's having, because he's like, she didn't, she dusted like monsters do, etc. Sally. So it was cool to like see them go there, because now we're not just stuck in Percy's perspective. Right.
You get a bunch of that in this episode. There's another time when Percy leaves to go on that walk with Chiron around, and Grover and Mr. D hang back, and Grover's like, I don't know, something just doesn't feel right.
Yes!
So you get those moments. It's really fun.
That might be one of the most exciting parts about a book fan watching this, is getting to see those little moments that we've never seen before in the original series.
Right. And I'm really enjoying the changes that are made. I am totally fine with all of them. And I just think it's fun. And I hope that people aren't getting in the, oh, this is different. Like, I wanted to like reread the whole book before, and I don't think I'm going to do it. Like, I don't think I want to, because I just know my brain, and I feel like I would be too much like, that's not how they did it. And I won't be enjoying it as much. I think I could do something in the future where after the show is all done, read the book again and then watch the show again and then pick up on those. But I kind of want to just enjoy the show first. And I remember it enough. Like, I only read the first book like 2 years ago, and I made the podcast episodes about it and stuff. So I feel like it's still pretty fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
But I don't want the differences to cloud my enjoyment. So I think that's going to be an intentional choice for me. Now, maybe in the future, I can get all nitpicky and all that kind of stuff. But I'm just trying to have a good time. I'm just trying to have fun.
Yeah, going into this, like, for me, I mean, my background is in theater. My degree is in musical theater. Something I love more than anything is seeing stories adapt between different mediums. So I feel like I'm almost the opposite. Like, the thing I'm looking forward to the most about watching the show is seeing what they change. Yeah. And questioning, like, why did you want to change that? What motivated that decision? Was it pacing? Was it an update on the script? Does Rick feel differently about this character now?
Right.
The way that those stories like live and breathe through the different mediums is, it's so cool.
And that's the joy of a lot of us podcasters being able to be press, is like, I feel like I'm getting more appreciation for, I'm wearing one of those hats that has the press little card sticking out of it.
Yes.
By getting to like see more of the behind the scenes stuff, I'm getting more of an appreciation of what goes into adapting something. And now, like, when I'm watching the changes, I'm like, oh, I can see like they changed this because they had to do that. And I think that's really fun.
Yeah.
So now we have Grover post this consultation trying to run into Mr. D and Chiron while they're playing cards. It doesn't appear to be spades because they're not playing with 2 other people. I'm intrigued. It just seems like they're playing vague card game.
Isn't the game they always play like pinnochle?
Pinnochle? Maybe it is pinnochle.
I don't know what that game is. Obviously, I don't know how to say it.
I have played it before. I feel like they play spades, but no, because one of the chapter titles is I play pinnochle with a horse. So maybe it's always pinnochle and I said something about spades, or maybe they play spades in one book and then they play pinnochle in anothle.
I'd love to headcanon that they're playing Go Fish.
I mean, with the right 2 of them,
Jason Mantzoukas is playing Go Fish.
Yeah, I mean, look, Pinnocle's a 4-player game. Spades is a 4-player game. They're not playing either of those. They're playing something. But Grover comes in, asks if now is a good time, and Mr. T goes, no! And Chiron goes, sure! So good. So good. And this is where Grover says he had an unsettling feeling. Sally got crushed, but it wasn't like a normal human. I would have assumed that humans, they get, quote, really squishy. Just so good. I love that Grover is put together, but then still is also young and has these moments where the facade of having it all together is not seen. It's very fun. And then, of course, in classic, they are nailing the Chiron quotes, because Chiron says the truth can be very dangerous, which like classic Chiron. Oh my God, he hates the truth.
But this time I believe him.
Yeah.
You know, in the book, I'm like, you just hate the truth. You like lying to kids. You want to gaslight them. But now I'm like, no, it's true. He knows we need to listen to him. That's a voice of authority.
Oh, man. So the next scene that I enjoyed, we have Percy having another dream. And after this time, it's like, all right, this is for sure Kronos now. Because in the first episode, I was like, I think it is. But like, it could have just been something else. The key thing that gave it away in this one is when Kronos starts to speak, they intentionally have like a metal gate closing noise. And that was always the way it's described in the book, is his voice sounds like grating against metal. So if you watch it, you can hear like creaking. It's like an iron fence that needs WD-40. Yeah.
That is really a good detail.
Mm-hmm. I really, really, really liked it.
I immediately went to the IMDb Pro page and was like, where is it listed the voice in the dream? Where is it listed the voice in the dream? To try and find the actor. And I think they list him in the credits for this episode, but I couldn't find anyone credited on IMDb as like the voice or as Kronos. So I was like, oh, darn it.
Yeah, I think they're keeping it unnamed and it'll be very interesting. But the dream is good. He is significantly creepier in this dream as opposed to the first one. The first one, it like wasn't that creepy. And the second one is like mad creepy. And then you have the pit coming out.
Ooh, it's giving Aladdin. You know the opening of Aladdin? Wow.
Yes. It's good. It's very, very good. So then we do have a conversation. We're getting more of the Percy and Luke friendship, which I think they are nailing, which sucks because Luke is so likable that I'm like, I even know. And I'm still like, I like this guy. And I'm like, no, you can't. You can't.
No, literally, I'm like, I follow him anywhere. Like, that's a leader.
He's so good. He's so good. And I'm really glad in one of these conversations, he explicitly mentions ADHD and dyslexia because those weren't named explicitly in the first one, and I was afraid that they were gonna like vagify it where they're just saying things like, you know how you struggle to pay attention or sometimes have problems reading. I'm glad that Luke was like, boom, straight up. That makes me really happy. So I'm glad that they did that. This is where the we're all on the same team here thing, where that line happened. Oh, I might have got stuff out of order. Maybe it was after this conversation where the Clay-reese thing happens, because I just read in my notes, Clay-reese is a great bully. So I think I might have messed up the order. But it's, look, the nature of doing these fresh after watching and just vibing.
Exactly.
Let's structure more vibes here on these episodes. But now what we're having is a montage scene of sorts with Luke and Percy going around trying to figure out what Percy's good at to see if they can determine the claiming.
Got to get him some glory.
Got to get some of that glory. And Percy has some doubts as they are outside the archery range. And Percy says, I just want everyone to know I haven't done this before. And then Luke says, you never killed a minotaur before until you did, which is a really good line. I really like that line.
He is standing there with his arms crossed and his feet wider than hips distance apart, like full dad stance in the cargo pants. And he looks like a head counselor. He looks like your cool older brother. Like, I 100% believe this, like, he's so eminently likable to these kids and he's such a great pseudo father figure for them.
It's good.
Oh,
it's good.
It hurts. Oh no.
Also, thing that I really liked, one of the campers, one of the archers using a wheelchair. Cool. Good. Also a funny moment when that person wants Percy to light the arrow on fire and Percy says, basically, I don't think you want to do that. It's good. It's really good.
Yes.
He's bad at archery. He's bad at forging. So struggling, looking like he's not doing so good. But then we have him and Luke and Chris Rodriguez having a chat at the dining hall, which is, again, different than what I imagined, but fun. It's like picnic tables all circularly oriented around the fire.
The circle motif is great because it's the cabins are in the circle. Those pathways, like the spoke that we were talking about, is in a circle. The Olympians sit in the circle. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that Chris was there like during the entire training montage, like he was there at the archery field. He's really getting set up as like, best friend number one to Luke.
Yeah. I think they're doing a good job of making the Chris Rodriguez thing sting more in future seasons, which is good. Yeah. And we still haven't seen a Charlie Beckendorf or a Selena, I think.
I don't think so either.
I think they're intentionally, because if you cast someone, you got to stick with it. I think they are intentionally saying, okay, those are going to be big roles. Let's wait until we have more time. And I think I don't think that they have committed to a Thalia yet, or at least it's not been announced. So I think that for some of the bigger things, I think they're trying to pump the brakes a
Oh,
little
and they
bit.
have to actually cast that actor during season 2.
The very end when the fleece, you're right, the very, very, very end. Wow. Yeah.
That's going to be a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, look, start the casting stuff now. Strikes are done, baby. Let's go.
I'm sure they are.
Yeah. My goodness. So then they have a conversation where they're explaining the fire thing, burn we care about the most, all that kind of stuff. So then Percy does something new and unique and interesting.
Oh, God.
After dinner, makes a little fire in like a tin can and then starts burning the blue candy. And he talks to his mom. I love that. Like, they never explicitly say, like, you do this to the god. Like, it's very heavily implied, I guess, or maybe even explicitly said, like, you do this to talk to the gods. And the person's like, talking to Sally. It's great.
He's so teeny tiny in this big, dark forest. Oh, my gosh. They have this shot. They open on the shot of the fire, but then they pull back to this wide shot of him sitting, crouching over the fire in these big, expansive forest. And you just think, this kid is so small. He just lost his mom and he's in this brand new place. Oh gosh, it really is emotionally affecting. And of course he's doing that thing that you want to do when you're at a sleepover and you want your mom to come and pick you up and you want to call her. And so
Which
he's
I've
calling
done.
her. Yeah.
I did that when I was little.
Yeah. But then he says that are you sitting down because I think I have friends, like real friends?
Which sucks because he's talking about Luke and Chris.
It hurts.
Crushing.
It hurts so bad. It hurts
Crushing.
so good. It hurts so good.
It's really, really good, but it is super duper crushing. But I also like in this conversation that Percy is having with Sally, his ending message is that he's just angry at Poseidon. He's like, I'm going to make him see us. I'm going to make him see both of us. I'm going to make him come down here. And I like that they are conveying something that I definitely found in the book. His anger for Poseidon and his love for Sally and those kind of contrasting. Really solid. Really solid.
When I saw this scene, the first thing I said to Carter was, that was his I Want song. Like when you're in a musical, you always have to have your I Want song where your protagonist says, this is what I'm going for. This is what I am bereft of. And this is what I need. And this is the moment where like he is going to make his dad see, because he doesn't know yet that he can get his mom back.
Yeah. It's good. It's really, really, really good. So before we continue on, let's take our middle of the episode break. I guess we can keep calling it the lightning brief because it is the lightning thief season, even though they are not explicitly calling it that. It's just Percy Jackson and the Olympians. But I think lightning brief still works. It's basically a lightning thief season. We'll talk about fun updates of the podcast and stuff, and then we'll get back to talk about more stuff. Hello and welcome to the Lightning Brief, our mid-roll break for the episode. If you are new to the podcast, we do this every episode, take a little break to talk about updates with the show, information about what lies ahead, thanking our patrons, stuff like that. If you are not new to the show, welcome back. And if you were wondering why I didn't put a mid-roll break in the last episode, it's because I knew I was uploading 2 episodes today, so no need for 2 mid-roll episodes. Also, I was just so excited to talk about episode 1 with Sequoia that I never stopped to take a break where I could put in a mid-roll break after, which felt true to form for a discussion about episode 1 of a TV show we've all been heavily anticipating. But let's get into some updates for the newest Olympian. First, just in case you didn't listen to the bonus episode we posted earlier this week, I just want to give an update about what the schedule is going to look like for the next set of episodes of the newest Olympian. For at least episodes 3 and 4 of the show, I should be able to get episodes of the newest Olympian about those episodes live the day after the show goes live. So the TV show now is coming out on Tuesday nights. So Wednesday mornings, I should be able to have episodes of TNO up. So that is the plan there. And in the meantime, I still want to post things on Mondays from some of the interviews I've been able to do and other press opportunities and stuff like that. So make sure you're subscribed to the News Olympian wherever you are currently listening to this so that when we post something, you get a notification. After episode 4, we might go back to the original plan of posting episodes on the Monday after the TV show goes live, but we'll just have to see. You can always go to thenewsolympian.com/about to know what the schedule for the next couple of episodes is. Second, I want to thank anyone who came to any of our recent Texas shows. We did a whole little Texas tour in December, and I'm very appreciative to everyone who came to any show. There's folks who came to multiple shows. It was a really fun time, and it's been long in the works for me to do a proper Texas tour, and it was a delight to do it and to conclude it in my semi-hometown of Houston. It was wonderful. Thank you all so much. I met some wonderful folks. Some folks were so nice and gave us lovely gifts. It was just great all around, and me and Kelly and my friends and family had wonderful times at the shows. So thank you all so much for making it so special. And I would also like to say that if you are looking to come to a TNO show in the future, you are in luck because we've got a whole bunch in 2024 on the docket. We've got 3 in Florida, Gainesville, Tampa, and Orlando on February 8th, 9th, and 10th. Then Denver, February 18th, Phoenix, February 20th, and then recently announced Raleigh on March 9th and Charlotte on March 10th. New shows are coming out. Follow us on social media at Newest Olympian so you don't miss any of those announcements. And other things that I might post about on social media is that we are restocking a lot of the merchandise that is currently out of stock. So with the new merch that came out and also the holidays, I guess lots of people bought things like the beads and the Camp Regular Person shirts and the pens. Those 3 items are all currently being restocked. If you go to thenewestolympian.com/merch, you can check it out. You might be able to pre-order some of them already, but we're doing big restocks for all of those. Thank you to everyone who has already bought some of our merch and tagged me in photos of it. It's wonderful to see. I really just think it's so cool to see folks wearing TNO stuff in the wild. It warms my heart. So yes, you can head on over to thenewestolympian.com/merch for all of our various merch items. And if you want exclusive merch items, you can check out our Patreon at thenewestolympian.com/Patreon. That's where the Percy Later merch lives. Stickers and enamel pins and special stickers if you join at our highest tier. And speaking of that Patreon, I want to give a shout out to the folks who have joined our Patreon most recently. We do again have the wonderful problem of a lot of folks have joined recently, so we're going to do the thing where we cap it at 50 people to thank in this mid-roll break. So shout out to our newest Mega God tier patron, Viva La Couch Dog. Shout out to our newest Super God tier patron, Paige Rose. Shout out to our newest God tier patrons, Gerardo Sanchez, Emma Fouts, Queen Leannes, Madeline Market Matefi, Tony Lance, Lexi Lawler, Megan Desmarais, Cassidy Hubner, and Aaron Boudreau. And shout out to our newest demigod tier patrons, Gallbug, Mrs. O'Meary, Kaylin Conrad, Sarang, just pretend it's pronounced Sarah, so I guess Sarah, Omnom de Plume, Abby Jennings, Anna Nehal Patil, July Lights or Julie Lights, Shvinji13, yes, that's SHVNJI13, Mariko Elior Shayet, David Vibe Robbie Lawson, Danielle Reed, Hound Dog Harry, Bradley Wilke, Melissa Sisson, Sapphic Huntress, French Toast 40, Natasha Lee, Michael Francis, Sindim R, William Henriksen, Demigoddess Jess, Tori Lorimer, Steffi, Carolyn, Cabrali, Daniel Melling, Lindsay, Mary PC, Hi There, Lexi, Claire, Lauren Haley, Jake McGrail, Lily M, Rachel Preston, Caddy Timpson, and the Happy Fun Ball. And also a name correction for Oh My My's. Thank you all so much for your support. May Hermes, the god of travelers, bless you if you're ever on a long road trip. Hopefully things all just work out with gas mileage and bathroom breaks and no traffic and speed limits and all those sorts of things. If you're all caught up on the Newest Olympian and you're looking for a new podcast to listen to, I make a whole bunch of podcasts as an independent podcast boy. I think you would like some of the other shows that I make, including Meddling Adults. Meddling Adults is a charity game show podcast where I serve as the host and guests compete to solve children's mysteries from classics like Scooby-Doo and Encyclopedia Brown, and the winner earns money for a charity of their choosing. We already have 4 full seasons up. They're all super delightful, lots of really fun guests, and it's all for a good cause. We raise money through the Patreon. The ad money goes to charity. It's a good time. You can listen to it wherever you get your podcasts by searching for Meddling Adults or going to our website, meddlingadults.com, and you can play along at home to see if you beat the guests and stack up to the prowess of these fictional young detectives. Now, before we wrap up here, you're going to hear words from a few sponsors who make it feasible for me to be a full-time podcaster. Some of those ads will be read by me, and others of them won't. The ones that aren't read by me are inserted locally, so if you live in Long Island, don't be surprised if you hear an ad for septic tanks. But once those ads are complete, we'll get back to this episode of The Newest Olympian. Okay, we are back, and we are here for Supreme Lord of the Bathroom time. I'm so happy. I'm so happy that this was the episode title. So many people tagged me in it when it was announced that that was going to be the episode title. Very excited about it. I have multiple cross stitches that people have sent me that say I become Supreme Lord of the Bathroom because in an episode I offhandedly mentioned like, oh, that'd be fun to have in your bathroom. Ha ha ha. Not thinking that 8 people would make them and then send them to me as gifts because people are the best. And it's just wonderful. So yeah, I have a bunch in my bathroom.
I was literally going to say, as I was making notes for this episode, I was like, ask Mike if it's okay if you can tell everybody that he has multiple embroidery hangings in his bathroom that say I am the Supreme Lord of the Bathroom.
In our old place, we had all of them in the bathroom. In our new place, we have some of them in the bathroom and then some of them in the Shubio. So we've got...
They're all beautiful.
They're
Whoever
all great.
made those, shout out to you guys.
People are so talented. They're so
I did embroidery
talented.
as a kid, and it is not easy.
No, I can't even imagine. So power to them, but also power to the Disney Plus show for understanding the truth of Supreme Lord of the Bathroom. You've got the swirly scene. Clay-reese is intimidating. It does start with Percy coming back from this little campfire thing, chat with Sally, and he has a line, and I don't know. I want to know what he was going for here, because Percy goes, oh, hey guys, can't sleep either? And I'm wondering, was he genuinely just being like an innocent, sweet summer child and being nice? Or was it a sassy thing because these people did bully him not too long ago?
I have that exact question in my notes. I was like, what do you think? Is he being sweet and naive? Because he just had this whole monologue about how he's making friends and he feels like he actually belongs here.
Yeah.
But also he is Persassi. And I love that we can't quite tell.
Yeah.
Like,
it really could go
either
either way. It really could. It really could. So then they are trying to give him a swirly. The dude like kicks out his leg in like a kind of violent way to get his head down. I was like, oh my gosh, like it was really intense. You feel the terror of the impending swirly, but then the water goes in, then the water goes out. The effect looked cool, like splits into 3 streams that go around Percy and hit each of the kids, wrecks the door of the stall, and there's water everywhere. The 3 of them run off, and then Annabeth comes in and we get that first conversation between Percy and Annabeth, and it's just wonderfully awkward where he asks, are you stalking me? And she goes, yes.
He says, I can explain. She says, no, you can't. He says, I know you. She says, no, you don't. He says, are you stalking me, Annabeth? She says, yes.
It's good. I think that the dynamic is there. They have certainly made some changes to where I think she's a little colder in this episode, but we will see if that melts away as things progress. I think this is another thing where you don't necessarily feel warm about Annabeth by the end of this episode, but I think that's, again, like I was saying before, you don't have the time to find out Mr. D being his deal. You don't have the time to melt away all the Chiron stuff. Annabeth, I think that was another thing when you read the book. It's like in the beginning, she is kind of cold. And then as it goes on, then you're like, oh, okay, I kind of like Annabeth. And then they go on the quest. I don't know that we're going to get that, and I think it's okay, and I'm hoping that their relationship develops over the upcoming episodes, but at least for now, Annabeth is a little colder at like the time that the stuff happens, but in terms of like total time they have known each other, it makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Like the timelines like are kind of a little different, but I think it's okay, but that's just what I'm feeling right now.
Interesting. Yeah. She's so like, Leah is like, that's the essence of Annabeth for me. Like, I do think like book Annabeth sometimes sounds almost, she more talks sort of in the way of like hyper nerd, like I'm a hacker, like let me hack into the mainframe type of smart girl vibes. And I feel like this performance of Annabeth is giving like, I'm a general. I am in charge. I have something to win. I have an objective to achieve, and you're going to fall in line.
Yeah.
She's literally the head of the cabin, and I really get that vibe from her. A little less nerd and a little more hero.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I think that tracks.
Yeah.
So then we have a scene where Percy and Luke are talking, and they basically get us to learn, us the viewer, to learn about the Annabeth dynamic, the backstory with him and Luke. He does have an early delivery of she's my little sister, which is my favorite. Like in book 5, the you're like a brother to me moment. Oh, so good. Oh my God. Oh, so funny. So
I have
funny.
to say, in this moment, all of my concerns were like lifted off of my shoulders about how they were going to handle this relationship dynamic, because it is questionable in the books. It is very questionable, and it's well written.
I did not realize, people didn't point this out until after I had all the episodes at the end of book 5, like trashing the Luke, like, did you love me thing? And some people saying like, maybe he meant it family wise, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, he's 23 and she's 15 or 16.
He is 7 years older than her.
Yeah. So she's 16 and he's 23. That's whack. That is
Exactly.
so whack. You better have meant some sort of familial love. Otherwise, yikes McGee. So I don't know if this means they're just going to completely get rid of the Annabeth Luke crush thing. Like, I don't think it's necessary. I think Percy can still be jealous of Luke in other ways, or like, you don't need to have the jealousy. Like, I think the betrayal of friendship is enough reason. I don't think he also has to think that Luke is a threat to Annabeth. So I think it's fine.
I would love if Luke is never a threat to Annabeth, but Annabeth has naturally these like complicated and unclear emotions for him. And he is like a father to her and like a brother and all of these things. But he never has to be complicated towards her. So
That's
I
true.
love
Yes.
that it is like,
there we go. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's how I think it always made sense to me in the book is it was always, oh yeah, Annabeth has a crush on him, but it's not back. So that's why when he says in book 5, do you love me or did you love me or whatever he asks, that's when I was like, oh, like I never really thought of it being a two-way thing. I thought it was just like, well, yeah, like, you know, like when the young person has a crush on the camp counselor or whatever, I totally viewed it as a one direction.
Yeah. And I felt that this was the perfect delivery of this line where I was instantly like, yes, he does love her like a sister. Yes. I believe him. And now I'm not going to be worried about it.
Yep, it's good. We also get some Thalia backstory, which I think is good. And what I like, however they have written the dialogue, it does not feel exposition dumpy. Like it tracks as a normal conversation that people would have.
And the pace, I think a lot of that is the pacing. Like a lot of these conversations start over these like establishing shots of camp. We move to a different scene. We see time passing as we're doing this exposition. So we're like physically moving through time to get closer to the game as we're talking about the past. So it doesn't feel like we're stuck or we're stagnant.
Yeah, it's really smart. And that happens later after the claiming thing is you immediately hear a voiceover of Chiron saying, you have been claimed by Poseidon. And I was like, was Chiron right there waiting? And then it cuts to them having a conversation. You're like, oh, audio from future conversation.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. They're just like, no time is being wasted.
Yes, this is the really excellent editing to keep these episodes short and like kid friendly.
Yeah, it's really good.
And friendly to my brain.
Yep, always good. Always good. So then capture the flag is actually going to happen. Got our team set up, and then you have Luke telling Percy, let her rip, and I went, tied.
I know, right? I was like, let it rip, tied? Please.
Oh,
They were missing the sound cue. They should have done
just
it full
start playing the song
3 for 3. Yeah.
Like, here's what I'm going to say. As someone who accidentally Nostradamus predicted that they would do that for the trailer, they shouldn't use it in the show. Like,
I think we put that in our playlists like back in 2020 as a joke.
It's one of those things where like when they did it for the teaser, I was like, okay, it's like the best choice, but also the worst choice, but also like the most choice to make.
It was the choiciest choice.
It was the choiciest choice. Don't actually put it in the TV show. Don't do it. It will be too much if he's fighting Ares and he whips it out and there's like, I don't need Vance Joy in here. Like, it's gonna ruin the vibes.
I agree. Full send. Moving on.
But let her rip tide. And then we have the fact that they are doing Annabeth's plan, and we have Annabeth and Percy talking, and she uses the hat, and it's really cool. It looks cool. It feels cool. I'm excited that it is a Yankee hat, and they didn't have to do like generic unbranded hat. As a huge Yankees fan, it was very nice that we got the hat. I was happy to see it. It's how I envisioned it, being one of those like floppy ones that you get like a cap day, not like a nice big firm fitted one. It's perfect.
You also get this moment as they're walking in the woods together of Annabeth fixing his armor. Which I thought was such a delicate detail to show that even though she is like kind of, you know, cold towards him and not necessarily like friendly, she cares because he is one of her soldiers. Like she sees him as an underling. And so she's like, he is not safe right now. I have to fix him and make sure he looks good and he is safe to fight for me and to work for me. And that's how she sees this.
Yeah. And that does happen again after the whole fight when he's upset at her for not stepping in. When he's upset on the ground, she does stick out her hand to help him up. So that care is still shown, which is very nice.
Yeah.
Then we have the wonderful montage of Percy wasting time as the decoy, which we did get to see at Comic-Con. It was genuinely really funny.
Lost our minds.
Yeah. You know that this show is doing well when someone who's a very public hater of flossing.
Michael!
Here, I have a thesis statement. What I don't like about flossing is you have kids at sporting events. They're not doing it as much anymore, but you have kids at sporting events like on the dance cam just doing flossing. Dancing, in my mind, because I'm a huge fan of it, I took years of classes from it. I still do it all the time. Like dancing to me is an art of self-expression. And if you just floss, you don't have self-expression. You're just doing the thing. Someone says dance and then you're following the thing. And you're just doing what you're supposed to do. Like, no, you got to do what feels right. And even in line dances, you can switch it up. In the wobble, you can add your own flair to all the different things in a way that you can't in flossing. There is only one way to floss, and there is just speed is the only variable. So I am big anti-flossing from like a meta big picture perspective, but from a believability thing of what a 12-year-old in the early 2020s would do wasting time, it 1,000% tracks. This is exactly what Percy Jackson would do.
That is the wildest manifesto I have ever heard. I cannot believe the depth to which you have thought about this.
I stand by it.
I'm pro flossing because I like to show people I can move really quickly. You know?
Sure, but like
I wanna outspeed everybody on the floss anytime. If you see me on the street and you say, that's Erica from Seaweed Brain, immediately start flossing and we can have a speed battle. And that is my promise to you.
Okay. And if you see me, don't dare.
Don't floss.
Don't. We'll have a real dance battle. We'll have a dance battle, but a proper one.
A proper dance battle. No one does proper dance battles anymore.
Like, I wish. Oh my gosh. Like give me that where like people settle arguments from dancing, please.
Yeah,
please.
like a West Side Story.
Yes. Oh my God. No
Gotta
more
meet up
fights.
in a parking lot.
Just fight dances.
Just snapping.
Yeah, why not? So then the flossing, the little, I don't even know what it was, a little salamander? What was that guy?
I need
little lizard?
someone to ask. I don't know why. I should have asked Liam or somebody. Like, I need somebody to ask Walker if that was a real lizard. Because I swear to God, that was a real lizard.
It looks super real. I think it's a real lizard.
The joy on his face as he is petting that lizard is, no one can act like that. That was authentic joy.
It's a real, I got to look more in the credits because this came up in the last episode when they had pigeons, which made me so happy as a pro pigeon person. Who was in charge of the pigeons? That's who I got to get on the podcast. Bring me the pigeon person.
Yes.
But this whole scene's fantastic. Then you have the Ares campers showing up, being intimidating. Clarice's spear is cool. I like the effect. I like the emotion behind it. Like you can tell very quickly that she likes this thing. They don't explicitly say this is a gift from her dad, but you can tell that she likes this thing. So when it breaks later, her scream as well just makes it so compelling and convincing that she loves this spear.
It's the way that she holds it and she looks up at it as she's talking to him.
Yes.
It's like she's looking at her child.
So proud of it. She's so proud of her thing.
Yes.
So then Percy runs away. They chase after her. Her combat boots and camo pants are perfect.
The blue camo pants.
Perfect decisions.
That's Clay-reese.
Perfect decisions. So chasing him around, ending up near the water, that whole fight scene, classic. And it ends with Luke rushing in with the flag. They win. And then Annabeth takes off the invisibility hat to reveal that she's been there the whole time. And at first I was like, I don't know. I'm also angry alongside Percy that she didn't step in because he's upset that she didn't help him out. But you can tell this is more of her being cold and calculated. And then she pushes Percy in the water. She does apologize right as she's doing it. So not necessarily an effective apology, but still an apology. And pushes him into the water. And then that is when he gets claimed. You get the trident showing above his head, which is the exact trident from the logo. Like the exact one. So I guess that was like 2 years in advance. They were like, hey, VFX team, you got to use this. So they have the exact logo trident. And then Percy has been claimed by Poseidon. And the scoring that comes in is so good. Like it just feels so impactful. So much so that you might be able to ignore the mountains in the background that are not Long Island at all. Oh, Vancouver.
The mountains of Long Island. They're so beautiful. They're like Narnia.
Oh my goodness gracious. So then you've got Chiron saying the name of you've been claimed by Poseidon, Earthshaker. Doesn't say the god of horses. That's a quote from the book, right? Doesn't he end it with the god of horses?
The same thing. When I was watching this show, I was watching with Carter and we were on a video call. And as Chiron was saying this, Carter was like saying it along with Chiron and went to go say father of horses. And then was like, oh, he didn't say it.
Yeah, which is one of those choices where like, yeah, I get it. It totally makes sense. But I always thought that was such a funny thing. I was like, because I didn't know. When I was reading this, I didn't know that he was. So I was like, the what father of horses? Like,
I thought it was a very telling cut. They were like, it's too silly goofy. We can't. This is a dramatic moment. No horse speak here.
The tidy whities, they've made it. The father of horses, we got to cut it.
Right? Interesting choices. I'm fascinated by the decisions.
Yeah. Something that has been coming up more in this episode that I think is good that I don't think is from the book. The terminology of forbidden child, I think is great. I think it's so effective. I think it's a really good way to not have to talk about the pact and all these things over and over and over again. Just to say you're a forbidden child is a very good for the audience, especially the I haven't read this before audience, to just go, oh, okay, yeah, I get it.
Yes. And it's one syllable shorter than child of the big three, which is a mouthful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it also just like sounds more official. Like it sounds like something you would read in the manual of, hello, welcome to Camp Half-Blood. Here's the glossary of terms you should know. I think it tracks.
Yeah, I agree.
Then you have Chiron in this conversation saying that you are Poseidon's son. And Percy says, I am Sally Jackson's son, which is good.
Yes.
Really good.
Yes.
Really good. Made me very happy. Made me very happy. Then Grover rushes in because, they're all talking about the quest and stuff. Percy doesn't want to go on the quest. Grover comes in against the direct orders of Mr. D and Chiron, spills the beans, and says the whole thing about your mom was taken to the underworld by Hades. They've already established that they think Hades has the bolt. So rather than Percy go, I'm not doing this stuff, he says, when do we leave? Episode end. Boom. Credits, which are so cool. The credits
are so beautiful.
And Rick's name is there so many times. His name shows up so many times.
That's called a multi-hyphenate, baby.
Love it. We absolutely love it. And he's proud of this adaptation, as he should be. This episode ripped. It ruled. Erica, we will talk a little bit more on Patreon for the patron exclusive Patron 5 questions for some more overall thoughts and stuff. But any little quick parting thoughts before you tell the people where they can find you, and then we get on to future anticipation of episode 3.
The mountains of Long Island are absolutely stunning. And as a kid, I grew up far away from New York City. So this is the kind of thing, like this is how I perceived New York to be. Every time it was presented in media, I was like, that's New York. And then when I moved here, I was like, where's all the other stuff? So I shout out to kids out there who might be listening to this who don't know what New York looks like. Please just keep imagining this is what New York looks like, because this is the mythical New York of our dreams.
Yeah, they haven't explicitly, no, they have said Montauk. Yeah, so they would know. Like, I just don't want people to watch this and then be like, we should do a weekend in Montauk. And then they show up and they're like, huh?
The septic tank from the first episode.
That tracked.
Yeah.
That certainly tracked for Long Island. Big mountains? Not so much, but the vibes are great. The show is fantastic.
Beautiful.
You're fantastic. Where can people find you if they want to hear you doing stuff?
Everybody, come and find me and my co-host Carter, who could not be here tonight. But come and find us at Seaweed Brain Podcast on all the platforms. That's where we're streaming. We're at Seaweed Brain Podcast on Instagram, at Seaweed Brain Pod on Twitter. We're on all the social medias. I kind of have a TikTok, Erica.SeaweedBrain. Come check us out.
Yes, Erica, thank you so much for joining. Listeners, thank you so much for listening. And until next time, when we figure out what's going on as they begin the quest, until then, I'll see you later. Hey there! Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Newest Olympian. This podcast is created, hosted, and produced by me, Mike Schubert. I also run the social media and the website. Our editor is Sherry Guo. The music is by Bettina Campamanes and Brandon Grugel, and the art is by Jessica E. Boyd. If you want to be a part of the show's community, you can find us on social media. We're at Newest Olympian on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. There's also a subreddit, reddit.com/r/thenewestolympian. And then there's also the Discord that you get access to by joining any tier of the Patreon over at thenewestolympian.com/Patreon. If you want to get some TNO merch, you can go to thenewestolympian.com/merch. And if you want to support the show, and as a thank you, get access to a whole bunch of bonus content, you can do that at thenewestolympian.com/Patreon. Speaking of that Patreon, let's give a shout out to our producer level patrons: Kelsey Gillespie, The Damn Steam Nuggets, Vicky Garcia, Ellie Hoskovchova, Veronica Bartova, Haley Hastings, Robin Garcia, Frida Vikstrom, Megan Moon, Craig McRoberts, Taylor Payne, Giselle Salvador, Peter Johnson the Twin, Sabrina Balsiger, Boney Pony, Casey Williams, Polly Burge, Nikki Harris, Tatiana Schmidt, Sandra Rose, Josh Sayre, Josh Wilkie, Abby Ryan, Wise Girl, Ashton Gabrielson, Marco Redhouse, Caden Max, Sam Reeby, Riley Kiddas, Mary Kelly, Audra, Mrs. O'Leary, Rodith Kalma, Milo Kim, Harlan Christ, Cece Reeds 23, Sandkoff, Julia Kendall, Emil Oscar Thomason, Liz Cardigan, Sarah Neal, Ricky, John Drielsma, Rayla Matthews, Riley Draken, Lunica Dune, Sky Mallory, Elizabeth Obermiller, Aidan Parziani, Biggest Tyson fan, Hunter Landstrom, Captain Jack Rackham, Sky Captain and the Princess, King Bastion, One Damn Distraction coming up, Ethan Robinson, Ginger Spurs Boy, Joshua Aid, A Cup of Solace, Meg Roy, Lux, Neil, Will Buchanan, Olivia Krenicki, Mrs. O'Leary's Best Doggo, and Bradimus Prime. If you want to support the show in a non-monetary way, simply talking about the show is so helpful. Word of mouth is huge. So you can tell someone that you know who loves Percy Jackson about the podcast, or you can talk to someone who's looking for an excuse to finally get into the Percy Jackson books about it, or someone who's maybe getting hyped for the TV show that's coming up and they want to understand what's going on. Or you could post about the show on social media, or you could leave us a rating and review on whatever podcasting app you're using. All of these things really do help. I'm very appreciative to everyone who has already done so and to anyone who will do so in the future. But I'm just so thankful that you tuned into this episode, and I hope you tune into our next episode where we will be discussing episode 3 of the Percy Jackson TV show with Dr. Stephen Para. But until then, I'll Percy you later. Hey, how's it going? It's me, ASMR Mike. So when I was recording this mid-roll break, I was using my old microphone and my old setup, which is a bit loose on the mic stand, and it started to bend downward. It's one of those arm overhang things, and I tried to fix it, and while I was fixing it, I hoped that the microphone portion wouldn't fall off, and then of course it did. So here is me from a couple minutes ago, hoping that something bad wouldn't happen, and then something bad happening. Oh, my microphone is moving. Hold on. Stay in place. Please stay in place. Come on. Thank you so much for listening.